About this love. About this. About this love. About this love. Love.
How you guys doing today? You tuned into About This Love podcast with the host Dylan Sherelle. Say what's up to the people, Sherelle.
Say what's up to the peoples. What's up, peoples?
As you guys know, what I'm gonna say, be more. You can always be more. We are actually recording in our podcast room, podcast studio. Yeah, this is something different for us. I think we with this episode, we're taking it back to where we came from as it relates to like just doing audio. A lot of you all who watch our podcast and just our podcast know that we've kind of been doing the video thing and audio thing for a while, but we realized, lately with our busy schedule, if we didn't just stick with the audio for a while, we might end up just not doing any podcast at all. So we said, you know what, just to kind of keep being faithful and being consistent, let's just put out a podcast episode and just, focus on what we can do in this season as it relates to what time has allotted to us, and that's just audio. So for now, we're just doing audio. You will see us doing video things, but will be on our Ko-Fi platform, the School for Marriage, where we intend to be more personable with people. It does have a subscription of $7 a month. If you want to pay it, you can. If you don't think it's any value to you, then don't. But we do. We will be doing a lot of things up there with couples. We plan on doing a few Google Meet time to time, and doing a book study with some folks on there. But just those who are actually just a part of the Ko-Fi School for Marriage group. So just, if you guys want to check that out, please do so. You can find the link on our Facebook page. I'll make sure I put it in this description. And again, it's Ko-Fi, the School for Marriage.
Yeah, no, that was a lot, Dale. Definitely got some exclusive things coming for the listeners and those who subscribe, who wants to, be a part of it. It's definitely nice to have that available to people, because for sure we were doing the While and Waiting. We were doing the live virtual events, which are really nice. So we'll get back to doing those seasonally. But for those who want something a little bit more regularly, I think the School for Marriage is the place to go. And, also people don't have to be in your business. You can just kind of like run through it.
Yeah, because I remember like when me and Sherelle first had were talking about the idea, we were thinking about a TikTok, but one of the things I realized about TikTok is that anybody could just pop in and see what you're talking about. So it's like, we don't really want that. We want it to be more
exclusive.
Yeah, more exclusive. I'm sorry, more exclusive. We want people to be able to have privacy and feel like if they discuss something, it won't go outside of the group or anything, or outside of whoever they say it to. And two, the Google Meet it's just more of a place where people just meet up and just have a conversation and discuss things as well. So it's with the podcast, though I feel like me and Sherelle do address a lot of issues on our podcast, but I feel like there are a lot of things that we just don't feel at liberty to discuss in totality, because one of the things that I feel like, yeah, exactly, yeah. One of the things that I feel like people don't really realize in this epoch's time and space is that with social media and YouTube and the internet, like a lot of things are not meant to. A lot of things that are said online or YouTube or different spaces, while you have the liberty to say them, I don't think that it's wise to say them. And for a lot of people, things that they have said 20 years ago really hasn't aged too well now. But again, that's why I think that with me and my wife, it's we're always being reminded by our leaders, and our fellowship, just to be careful about what you say online. Be mindful about what you say online, even when you're speaking about marriage, even when you're speaking about God. Just be mindful. So when it comes to the School for Marriage on our Ko-Fi platform, we actually want to have the conversations about sex. We want to have the conversations about money or just family drama, and actually be able to be transparent, because we are speaking to an exclusive community about these topics, and so there's things that we would be more feel more liberty to share with on these smaller,
be more at liberty.
Yeah, platforms, and something that we wouldn't do with the masses with our podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like in marriage. Like, you don't share everything that you're going through online publicly, or and then you kind of leave yourself open to public scrutiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on that note, speaking of like not sharing everything that's going on in your marriage, we wanted to discuss today just when should you, or do we want to put the question out there for the listeners as, or our question out there for the listeners today is, when should you invite your family into your relationship? And like more specifically, like, do you have your family, what was the question? Like, do you have your family speaking into, your relationship and giving you advice or, kind of calling out some things that they see?
Yeah, I was more so thinking about it. The question that I had posed to Sherelle was like, to what extent should people have their families input into their relationship with his girlfriend or boyfriend or marital? One of the things that I was thinking about is that, like, oftentimes over the years I've known people who family members have been like hands off, like, yo, I don't want to get involved in that joint, like ain't gonna do that. But it's like, yo, dude over there beat, beating his wife, like you ain't gonna say nothing to him. And I, and oftentimes what I've learned is that, unfortunately, when people don't have the spirit of the Lord, because I feel like, me and my wife oftentimes, if there's issues even within our natural family, even if I may take the stance I don't want to approach it, I'll take it before the Lord and see what the Lord will actually have me to do, if anything. But I think oftentimes, I think people take that approach because one of the things that's always been said kind of goes around, even, I don't care what state you in, what city you in, is that, well, today they'll be fighting each other, but tomorrow, if I get involved, they'll be fighting me and back lovey-dovey, so I'll just stay out of it. And while I feel like that's true. That's true. Me and my wife, we went through that with ourselves, helping out a family member. That's true. But also, too, I think that oftentimes we don't really realize that people, when they do that, they're actually not in their right mind per se. So it's like,
I'm sorry, when they do what exactly? When they like
when they go back,
turn back on you, who
yeah,
gave the advice?
when they go back to the spouse or whoever may be abusive, and the abusive doesn't even have to be physical abusive, physical, abusiveness.
Oh, okay.
But
I mean, but you know what? Like, I mean, not even when it gets that, not even when it gets there, because I think the question comes about because it gets there, but it's almost like then you're inviting people in when it gets there, but it's almost like too late because you are wrapped up in it. I mean, I know years ago there was a big conversation about being arranged. There was actually a show, and I think I was sharing this with you
yeah,
when I was like younger in the early 2000s, called Arrange, and they had these
early
different,
2000s,
yeah, early
early
2000s.
2000s. I was in middle school.
That doesn't matter. Like there was a show out back then.
Oh, I thought you were saying you showed it to me in the early
No, I was
2000s.
just
I'm like,
talking.
wait a minute, I didn't know you heard
You always trying to
2000s.
prove a point, man, and it's just
No, I thought you were saying
exactly.
like I showed it to you, Dale, in the early 2000s. Like, I didn't know you were the early 2000s. I was a kid.
I wish I had a button where I could just rewind, like hit rewind in time so you could just hear what I said. I swore, and I could be wrong, but I swore I said, yeah, I was telling you the other day. And back in the early
Okay,
2000s,
I'm
there was
sorry. I'm
a
sorry.
show.
I apologize, babe.
You be trying to prove somebody wrong.
No, I
But
don't.
anyways, but yeah, so like there was a show called Arrange, and it was just so much conversation I felt around that time just about arranged marriages. Like, well, and I think my sister, actually my younger sister and I used to watch it. Like we watched every episode. You could, like, it was on TLC, I believe. And when I tell you, you could not get us to not like not assume, what is the word I'm looking for? You couldn't get us to not watch it or not think that, okay, maybe that's the way to go in marriage. Oh, because then right after that, the show that was popular after the arranged show was Love is Blind, where that was an arranged marriage situation. And we've talked about it on this podcast before, where, it's like you have these experts that introduce you to like the person you're going to marry on the day of your wedding, but they do the background work and they look at how you live and your social life and things like that.
Can I ask, and maybe during this podcast you can actually look it up, but what's the success rate in those marriages?
I mean, like, hear me out. There is, I think, one couple from season 1 of Marriage at First Sight. And I mean, yeah, Marriage at First Sight. I think that at least I know of one of the couples still married because I believe they just had twins or whatever. And this isn't about keeping up with, reality stars, but so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I mean, actually, I do not know, and I think it is very difficult to stay married, but because those those experts aren't really walking with them throughout the duration of their marriage. But versus like if you were arranged by family members, maybe the family would be there to kind of walk it out with them.
What I wanted to say, because to your point, just think about, and I'm not trying to put anybody on blast, and I'm not going to, but just think about everybody in your family that you know who are married or been married, and then think about everybody that we know in my family who are married or who have been married. And
married and divorced, or just married?
Married and divorced.
Okay.
And so my point to that is that, like, I think marriage has a very low success rate in today's culture anyway. And to your point, I'm just saying, like, I don't care. It doesn't matter if you arrange or just find somebody that you just see for find yourself. Marriage, the marriage rate in itself in today's culture is very low. So it doesn't. So whether it's arranged or not arranged, that doesn't really matter.
Well, it matters. It does matter. It does. And and let me tell you why, because in the same way, we just had this conversation, a couple podcast episodes back, about who you're surrounded by, your friendships, who's in your sphere, like your family, things like that, influences the way that you see your spouse. Like, in the Bible, it even instructs the older woman to instruct the younger women to love their husbands.
No.
Yes.
So you said it does matter.
I believe it matters.
What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if you go out and find your spouse or if your family go out and find your spouse. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that either way, or I'm sorry, not your family, but some specialists go out and find your spouse. Either way, the percentage or the divorce rate is still high. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's kind of blanketed though. Like, is the divorce rate high just overall, you're saying? Or you're saying, well, this section of people who are arranged marriage, in divorce, and this section of people who are, marrying for love, or, they found marriage.
Basically what I'm saying, that's is I don't think people know what to find in marriage, period. Whether it's arranged or whether you go out and find somebody at the club or at your high school, I'm sorry, not high school, but at your college or at your job, it doesn't matter. The divorce rate is, the likelihood of you ending a divorce is high anyways. It's not that, because I think it's because it's just to our point and to our school for marriage, that people don't know how to the people just don't have the tools to actually be a part of a successful relationship or marriage, period.
Yes, but that's still blanketed. I wouldn't agree with that. Like, we can agree to disagree, meaning like
you're gonna agree to agree.
I don't have to agree with you. I am my own woman.
You're gonna agree to agree,
and I can make my own opinions. But so, to my point of, it's Titus 2. For those of you all who want to know the scripture I reference, it's Titus 2. And I'm reading this from the New International Version, or the NIV. Likewise, teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. Then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. So, I don't think that's just in the scriptures for no reason. I just think that what we're seeing in our culture is that there is not people speaking, like, there's not many older women who are not drunk off of much wine and teaching the younger woman. Like, we see that in different areas of relationship and community, and not just just in the aspect or the avenue of a marriage, but just with the teen takeovers and a lot of young children committing crimes. Even though that's not the totality of our topic today, of our podcast episode today, we just kind of see that. So as you're saying, like, okay, well, all marriages, it doesn't matter arranged or whatever. I don't agree with that. And that's why, because I agree with maybe the marriage rates are high, but I don't think we exactly know how many were arranged and how many were.
No, that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that the divorce rate is high regardless if it's arranged or not arranged.
But how do you know that? How do you know that?
Because the divorce rate in America is high. That's how I know that.
Hold on, excuse me. But what's the point of saying that then? You're saying divorce rate in America is high, but what is the point of saying arranged or not arranged?
Because I think, to our initial why we started our podcast and why we started the Ko-Fi school, the school for marriage, is that people don't actually have the tools to actually navigate marriage. So I don't think it matters if you get married, if you choose your spouse, or if some random chooses your spouse. The likelihood of you getting of divorce is high anyways, because of, back to what I said, people don't know how to navigate marriage. And I think that, yes, that in itself is a cultural thing, as far as like not having fathers, not having both mothers and fathers in the home, not seeing how a man handles a woman, how a woman handles a man, how they interact with each other. I think that's just that's the tools that are missing. So that then we go and of our own power and try to get married because we are believing this Hollywood or fairy tale or Disney image that we've seen. Now realizing that there's a lot more that goes into a marriage, as far as having to deal with your spouse's trauma, having them have to deal with your trauma. How do you guys deal with conflict? What do you do if somebody cheats? What do you do? How you guys deal with sex? I mean, there are many different areas in marriages that people are just not equipped to deal with. So they go into marriage and they don't know how to deal with this stuff, and so it blows up in each other's faces, and they end up getting divorced. That's why I say that.
Dale, but you're speaking of people who have gone and found a spouse themselves. I'm talking
saying
about
both.
I know you keep saying both, but then the example you just gave, you said people do it on their own. Why is it that when you're speaking of, and it's not really why is it that when you are speaking of people who are maybe arranged, and I'm not saying arranged is the end all be all, and I'm not saying an arranged marriage does not end in divorce or has not or does not have the potential, but I think it's a little bit less likely when you're not just being arranged just to like your family marrying you off. I'm talking about people who, kind of back to our original question, when or should you invite your family into your relationship? And it's almost like, well, if you've allowed people who know you, who love you, who is looking out for your best interest, who's not just trying to get a dowry, not trying to just secure themselves financially, which does happen in areas of the world. You know, it does happen in different areas of the world where it's like, well, yeah, marry into this family because they have money and it's going to secure, secure my future and your future because of the financial gain of us being married or, us marrying into that family. What I'm saying is just that if they are looking at all the, checking all the boxes of like, okay, the character is there, the faith is there, the this and that is there. If they are walking you through finding a spouse, like, why would that then end a divorce? Because we're essentially doing the same thing with our school for marriage. It's just trying to give them the tools. And that's why I brought up the Titus 2 scripture, is because the older generation has to pass down those tools, which is why same thing, you're saying earlier in this podcast, that's why we started the podcast, is so that we can impart these tools to maybe other millennials who didn't get the tools from their family members, those who don't have the family or have the communal support of a marriage. I mean, and hey, even the people who stay married, but it's just been a tough time and you don't have the tools, it's like, but it didn't quite end a divorce, but you're still doing your own thing. But you know what I'm saying? You're only married by name. I think that it does. I'm agreeing with you. Like, if you just go out there and just, doing your own thing and not really considering, what you need or the people that you need surrounding you to support you, I do agree with that. You're most likely going to fail and it is going to result in divorce.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking about arranged marriages, I was only in my mind. And I never said this, but I was thinking about the TV show, because I remember watching a few seasons with you. In my mind, I was like, well, what's the point of this joint? Like, this joint don't nobody stay married. What's the point of this joint?
You're talking about with specialists. I don't think they're walking those people through their marriage. I think they're just walking them through getting married and staying married for the duration of the TV show, which could be 6 weeks, 2 months, like total of filming. I'm talking about arranged, meaning like my father went to your father, and you know what I'm saying? And like, they decided that you'll be a good fit to, to care for me and your future children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about when I say arrange. You're talking about those shows. And in those shows, everything is for production. It's not for the duration of the marriage. I think they really had to go and do the work. To those who stayed married had to go and do that work. Anyone who's been married for any amount of time knows that.
Yeah, no, that's real. You got to do the work. I don't want to. Honestly, I didn't want to say I wanted to shift the conversation because I don't want to shift the conversation. But I wanted to say, one of the things that we've seen over the years, and even with me and you, is that, like, when we know family members who are having different trials, or whatever, in their relationship, and I know I know when I was younger. I know it's funny because Sherelle, when I was younger, Sherelle would tell you, like, when we, like, first few years of us meeting, I would, like, no, Sherelle, I want to talk to them, and because they got kids, or they got this right here. But now that I'm older, I actually realize, like, I see why people just, like, take a step back or take a back seat. Like, as long as there's no, like, domestic violence, like, I take a back seat because I realize now that, one is that the individual, as much as I don't like what the individual is doing inside of their relationship, they are grown, and even if it's detrimental to their children, or even to the well-being of themselves, and I'm not talking about, like, like life or death wise, but just far as your children seeing you seeing behaviors that you do, and one day getting to a point in their lives where they actually begin to live that way because that's what you displayed before them when they were children. Like, me and my wife was having a brief conversation last night about that, where it's like, one day people get older and be like, Mom, I actually don't know how to be with one man, because I've seen you from the time I was a child to now. I've seen you bring many different men in and out of your bedroom. So I realize now why I can't actually, why I don't actually know how to be with one man, or why I don't know how to, why I've always let men disrespect me, because the only thing you've ever do is let men disrespect you in front of me. So now, as an adult, I'm seeing the detriments to that. And that's what I mean when I say detriment. Is like, people, we mimic behaviors or do things in front of our children, and not realizing that, like, one day they're gonna be a victim of the behaviors that you allow to be modeled before them. If you are a man and you bring different women in and out of your home, one day your sons are gonna see that and gonna model that same behavior. If you're a woman and you allow different men in and out of your bedroom, or throughout the years you've dated many different men, and if your children see you breaking up with this guy, then you back with this guy, it's like they're gonna actually see that and think that that's actually normal. When you actually get out of one relationship, you get into another one. You don't take time to heal. You don't take time to actually vet different individuals or get them out of your system. You just go right into another one. And so I think that one of the things over the years that I've wondered is, like, well, should I say something, or that's not right? But it's like, no, man, the person's grown, man. And so it's like, at the end of the day, I feel like, and I think there's a certain boundary that you just don't cross, because God won't cross that boundary. God gave us free will. God knows. God is fully aware of specific sins that are detrimental to us and the generations that will come after us. But He gives us free will, so He will fully let us divulge ourselves in that specific sin, knowing the detrimental it will be to us, because we have free will. And if even God told us don't do that, we still would do it anyways. And so I think that was more so on the line that I was looking at when I was thinking about, like, having family members, and wanting to have an input into a relationship, but actually seeing that it's not actually you just don't have that authority because they haven't given it to you.
I was about to say, I think there's two levels to it, and maybe even three, where it's like, on one hand, it's you got to consider the level of relationship you have with the person, before just speaking about their marriage to them, when you see a thing. I think another thing is, are they inviting you into it? Because then you have to determine, well, these people really want advice. They want me to walk them through some things. And are you willing to commit to walking them through it? Without any biases. And I think that's the part that's hard, because, like, the advice that's given to married people oftentimes are like, well, don't tell your mom and dad, what you're going through. Don't tell them every single thing, because they love you and they're gonna, and it's almost like, yes, but then I think you have to know, like, the people who you're sharing that with. Don't tell your friends everything that you're going through, because they might get jealous or they might not let stuff go. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe you don't tell them, because, they might not, what they're not willing to put up with, you might be like, hey, that's actually not a problem for me. that,
Yeah.
and truly in your heart, like, hey, I mean, I don't care if he leave the window open while we sleep or whatever, but someone else could be like, nah, girl, that couldn't be me. I don't know. I can't sleep with the window. Just it could just be stuff like that. Even even on a more serious note, things that might like rub your friends the wrong way, but you truly like that's how y'all joke. I mean, I know a couple who they clown each other all day long. They've been married just as long as we've been married. And I'm just kind of like, could not be me. And you know what I'm saying? Could not be me. And not that you and I don't have our jokes and we don't clown each other, but all day long, I that's an argument waiting to happen. And not to say that's not an argument between them waiting to happen, but I just know I couldn't do it. And it's no insult to those who can. I mean, I love that for y'all if you can. And not even in an insulting way, because you know how people be like, nah, I love that for you. Couldn't be me. No, I'm not saying you dumb. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, like, if that's how y'all connect, then
Like, I ain't saying you dumb, but I'm saying you dumb. No, I'm joking.
no, not at all.
I'm joking.
No, but I mean, but I also on the outside looking in don't have to figure it out. I think the problem comes in is when a family member does see something. I think this is when it hits a nerve, and when people really do not want, others in their relationship is when someone outside of your home, outside of your relationship, sees the same thing that's bothering you. And then it's like, oof, well, then it's like, well, let me cover it up. Let me close it up. I don't want, I don't want to look like we struggling. But it's almost like, once again, really like for you as the person, I guess, who want to receive the advice, or if you are getting the input or considering getting the input from others, I think it's almost like really considering the weight of that relationship. Can you trust them? Can they be non-biased? Can they pray with you? Are they willing to hear both sides? I mean, I think some therapists won't even see couples if they are only seeing one couple at a time. Like, yeah, I think it's almost like, well, if your spouse isn't coming from day one because I don't want any biases, then no, maybe it'll just be a me and you thing. But you could bring them on sometimes for me to buffer the conversations, but it won't be a continual conversation. And so, I mean, I get it, because, therapists are also human, and it's like, hey, I don't want to create any biases. Like I said, really thinking about the weight, or considering the weight of the relationship, who you're getting the advice from, or who you're sharing your low points in your relationship with, but also considering that, like, hey, thinking about your background, like to your point, I didn't see mom and dad doing this, so because I did not, but yeah, but just to your point, definitely, consider who you're sharing it with. But then for the people who want to give the advice, I just want to talk about that, and then I'll wrap it up, and I won't make it long. To those who see like the family member, I would just say, before you're quick to like say something, unless you felt a strong inclination from the Lord, and I don't mean you feel strong about it, just you might need to sometimes pray about it first and ask the Lord to open like those people or that person's heart before, and really building a rapport with the person, even if it's like your sister, brother, cousin, close friend. Sometimes it's like, ooh, I hadn't touched on it before with them, and I don't want to tarnish our relationship. So, let me just see how I can touch on it, and not just not say anything at all.
This was a good conversation for today. We'll actually finish up this conversation on part 2. We'll finish up this conversation next week. So until next time, Bible's love, Dylan Sherrill, be more.
No.
Always be more. Peace.